Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Walker, Season 3, Episode 17. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's kind of divide the storyline elements up. First and foremost, let's start off with Walker's side of things. Obviously, he's hanging out with the boys. They're going fishing. Obviously, it's not the night of pub crawling and debauchery that is typically associated with a bachelor party. So, Cassie wants nothing to do with it. Trey was kind of all about it, but it's like, yeah, I'm also fine with doing like the fishing and relaxing because it's like, yeah, we are older. We're not in our 20s, so we can't party up like you're crazy like that. So. Because I kind of skipped over it, but obviously Larry let everyone know about him and Kelly getting married again, and the entire family is like happy about that and they're celebrating. So it's Cordell, Liam, Larry. They bring out Larry and Kelly's son DJ, Trey, and August all end up going. Which August does have a side of the story we got introduced to this episode that he didn't talk to his dad about, which is going to be an interesting element of it seems like he is signing up for the military, which Cordell's going to have complicated feelings about that, and I'm sure a lot of that's going to come to a head next episode, because I wonder, does Abby and Bonham know about that? Because Bonham had this look on his face when he was looking towards August, so they might know about it and just haven't talked to Cordell about it yet. I don't know. That's my immediate thought. But I mean, obviously, like I said, like especially this episode too, where Cordell had to kind of confront, because I don't think he fully had an issue with his time with the military. It's just it comes with a lot of complicated feelings and complicated circumstances, which he ended up having to confront this episode, because while they're out there having fun, it is a really nice, like, beautiful bonding moment with all of them together, laughing, joking, marshmallows and stuff. But for Cordell, like, the past keeps rearing its ugly head, which Liam, obviously, he's a person which obviously he had to deal with his own trauma this season, especially Cordell as well, not just stuff from the present day. I mean, especially when you think about everything with Gray Flag was tied to the past regardless. It all ties to his past, but everything has been a symptom of something much larger, and that was back then, which he even had this beautiful moment, because initially, he didn't want to confront his past the way Liam was suggesting, like, right, kind of give in to your past. Like, once you've kind of healed from that will begin the, like, proper healing process. But for Cordell, it's like, I've seen too many of my friends, too many other vets kind of get lost in their past, and, you know, it kind of destroyed them. And for him, it's like, I got too much good in my life to kind of be backtrailing, like, through my trauma, my pain like that, because I don't want to get so lost in it, I end up destroying everything I have right now. But ultimately, he ends up talking to his younger self, his self back when he was a corporal in the Marines, and his, you know, because obviously for Cordell, he's like, yeah, I've kind of always had this trauma and this struggle my entire adult life, but for the younger Cordy, it's like, no, like, this goes back further than the Rodeo King, Stan, Gray Flag. There's something in your past you need to confront head on, because if you don't, it's going to haunt you forever, and you're never going to really be able to be there for your kids and for your partner. So you need to kind of do this, you know, because it's like, being here right now is the first step, but you still got another step to go to fully, like, moving on the past. You need to confront what's really there and find out what's really holding you back, because it's been there your entire time. And like I said, every other subsequent thing, referencing once again the Rodeo King, Stan, all that is just not a byproduct, but it's added on. It's extenuating trauma for something that was already there a long time ago. And so he ultimately has, because I guess they're relocating him, putting him in the witness protection program. Well, no, because they're taking him somewhere, and he's like, they're most likely taking me to DC, because regardless of it all, he did fake his death. He did. Oh God, I'm blanking on a term right now. It's a term of, like, basically he went AWOL. That's it. So that's a big issue in the military, just like going AWOL like that for as many years as he did. So he's going to have to answer for that. I mean, to our knowledge, like, he sadly doesn't have anyone else in the world either. Like, obviously his brother's going now. His mom died earlier in the season, so there's no family really left. He doesn't have a family of his own because he kind of abandoned any form of life when he went AWOL. So, but Cordell ends up talking to him, and it's like, honestly, he's like, I don't have any room to judge you, but it's like, once again, you are the foundation of everything that I base myself on. But he also talks about the fact is because of everything associated with Coop. Well, he was like, when I saw you again, he's like, when I found out you were alive, he's like, it scared me because he was worried that he was tiptoeing towards that same direction where it's like Coop ended up abandoning everything and everyone. And obviously Walker, Cordell's recognized like that he's had that in himself. Like the fact is, what happened when Emily died? What did he do? He up and left. He kind of left his kids behind and left his family behind rather than doubling down and being there with them, going through that together. He kind of ran away. And so he doesn't want that. He was scared of ever being like that. So especially because he knows like it's in him somewhere to do that because of the past. Because for him, it's like every time he's ever done anything, whether it was in the uniform as a Marine or in a uniform as a Ranger, he felt like he was doing something for someone else. Because that was also something that Coop was kind of getting at, that, yeah, that's part of the military thing of kind of, being of service. But it's like, yeah, but I've never really done a lot for myself. Everything I've ever really done up to this point has been for someone else. And I think he needed that perspective switch to start doing things for himself, and rather than just doing like, right, because this is what the uniform asks of me, I need to do things for myself. And instead of, once again, he's finding that work balance. He still is kind of working through it, but he ultimately thanks Coop for the man that he is. But he also ends up saying, I have to say goodbye to you, and hands him the flag. The flag he's been holding on to ever since they thought Coop died. He's been holding on to that. It's a personification of his trauma because he was holding on and never able to let Coop go because it was a reminder of his shame and his guilt over everything, feeling like he didn't do enough, like he wasn't there for Coop. So he gives it to Coop, and it's just, maybe one day I'll be able to kind of repay the debt for you making me the person that I am. But Coop's like, that debt's already been squared, but, be seeing you around Stinker, which I'm like, did we know that he called him Stinker? Which I guess that also implies, like, that's why he calls Liam Stinker the way he does. So maybe that had come up earlier in the season. I just didn't remember. I feel like I would have latched onto a detail like that, but maybe, it has been a while since we saw those earlier flashbacks with Coop, so maybe that's why I didn't really register in my head. But either way, this was the thing that Walker needed to do to finally take steps forward. As his younger self was saying, it's like, right, this way, your life, your future will be yours. So he's kind of finally taking the reins of his life a little bit back. After carrying all this trauma, he was finally able. Who knows if he's fully let it go, but he's starting to, walk away from it. And I think that just kind of a beautiful growth for his character in that moment. So, and he ultimately at least got half of it done, the thing that he's going to write for Larry and Kelly's wedding, because he's going to be officiating it. So, because DJ's going to be his best man, obviously he's going to get his son to be his best man. So, I thought that was beautiful. I also love the whole thing with Trey and the snake, which I love that they're like, because Trey was like, I already didn't want to do this. It's like I've already had to do this like with like when I was in the military. Like last thing I want to do is be like neck deep in some dirt again. Then had to deal with the bugs, so he's putting all that bug spray on himself. Then he's also got to deal with a snake that's apparently a copperhead, which would have been very, very bad to deal with. So I love it, and they're just like cracking jokes at his expense. And once they got back, he was like so done with it. So I love that. We had with the Kelly situation, like obviously her girlfriends from got stuck in Florida, so they couldn't be around. So it's like, right, you got this little motley crew of her, Cassie, and Jerry all hanging out, because Jerry and Kelly have known each other for a while. Obviously, they've kind of been in each other's like vicinities and circles just because of like Cordell and James and everything. But, for Cassie, it was like, oh, this is kind of nice. We get a break from everything, but it's still that thing of they are three women with their own respective careers. It's like, right, we don't have to sacrifice, having fun just end up, to sacrifice our careers. We can do both. And because it's like, yeah, we can, like, whatever work we got is going to obviously be there tomorrow. So, but it's like, yeah, they ultimately end up answering their phone because they were enjoying the spa or whatever, but it was still just kind of like, yeah, it was just kind of a little too much relaxation. And it was kind of like, I think it made them kind of a little like, oh, we don't really get to enjoy it. So ultimately, they go back to the sidestep and they start outsourcing everything. Get some, what you probably more traditionally associate with a bachelorette party. Some pretty handsome fellows servicing you drinks and doing stuff for you. It's like, oh, this is nice. I even love that Cassie and Jerry are saying, like they've only really interacted around the Walker family table. It's like, right, but it's like, yeah, let's kind of meet outside of that. We don't need just the Walkers having. It's like, let's be friends, let's hang out, let's get drinks sometimes. And I was like, I do like that. Yeah, we can have our own. We don't have to let the Walkers are the thing that brought us together, but it doesn't have to kind of define our friendship. We can be even more better friends spending time with each other outside of all that. So I thought that was pretty dope as well. So then we had the whole situation with Stella and Sadie, which I thought that was so interesting. That obviously that was supposed to be like a pop-off point because Sadie's taking her to like this very like specific party and stuff. But I thought like Sadie would have had more part of Stella's story. It's like, no, because Stella ended up running into Belle's. I was like, yo, I'd actually forgotten how long it's been since they've seen each other until they start talking. I was like, wait, when was the last time we saw Belle? And I started thinking back to season 2. I was like, no, it was season 1. It wasn't even like late season 1, was it? It was like pretty early on in season 1 was the last time they saw each other, because I believed everything with her family, like their status in the country. I think that was the last storyline we really got with Belle. I think so. I could be mistaken. And so it's like, and it's kind of sad because it's like, oh, they're not as close as they used to be, obviously. Because it's like, yeah, Belle didn't tell her like, oh, she was like back in like, it's like, oh, I thought last time we talked, I thought you were going to visit your parents in Mexico. She's like, yeah, I did. The fact is, I got accepted at this college. We actually moved to Nevada. She's like, yeah, she hasn't really kept up with Belle. Belle is like telling her like what her life's been about, and obviously, you have Stella being like, oh yeah, I'm working on this. I'm this, like, I'm, open this like horse rescue with my uncle. Yeah, and you could tell it's just kind of like they aren't in a good place, and it's kind of sad because that was her best friend. And so Stella ends up finding her later and talking, and I think that is a beautiful representation, because even Belle was like, yo, I wasn't expecting like that introspection from you. It's like, yeah, because a lot has happened to Stella, because she regrets back then. It's like she was going through her own thing, sure, but it's like how I was back then. I want to apologize because I wish I handled things so differently. I mean, that's the beauty of growing older. It does give you more perspective, both retro and introspective on life and yourself. Because yes, Stella has had some bumps along the way, but once again, we're talking about season 1 Stella to who she is now, having gone through the rest of season 1, all of season 2, and where we are here in season 3. She has grown so much and become, a young woman. She's finding herself, and obviously she's still figuring things out, but I think for Belle, she really needed that, and I think this has closed the gap a little bit more, and I think they can find their way back to being like close to like they were again. I think in fact, because of how much they've both grown and how much they've changed, how they've both been through so much, I do believe they could become even stronger friends because of that. At least you hope so. Because Stella's still trying to figure out, like, right, she took her year off and hasn't decided whether or not college is what she wants to do, or specifically, is the college what I should do, or should the horse ranch be what I should do? Which Belle was like, what you should do or what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, that's what you have to like distinguish between. Like, what is it? Something like nothing should be something you should do. Whatever you are feeling, like whatever you want to do, whatever you feel like is important to you, go for that. It's like, and I think for her, she needed that talk from her friend. And it's like, oh yeah, you've always been good with this stuff. I even love they introduced too that Belle has this, because she wants to go, she's in pre-law, she's studying pre-law because she wants to become an immigration lawyer. And obviously that's something that's very important to her. Just like the horse ranch, how therapy and stuff is important to Stella, like how both of them, like these things they've got in their lives can be something that they've had these complicated circumstances in their lives, and the thing that they're working towards or that's a part of their lives now can help them as well as help other people in a similar circumstance. So I thought that was kind of beautiful. Even like, hey, I got this podcast. You're the daughter of a ranger. I'd love to get your perspective on things. in the podcast. So I thought that was pretty dope. So maybe we could see them kind of link up in that regard, which I feel like that could also be it could be a poignant and probably very tricky conversation to have. But I think it's a very poignant conversation to be having those different perspectives on that situation. Someone whose family has that citizenship perspective and issue, and someone who comes from a background of having a father who is a ranger, a cop, So I thought that was kind of interesting. Then another angle to this episode revolves around Bonham and Abby. It's the first time the house has ever been this quiet in like 20 years, because it's like, right, they've, because everyone moved out, but they also kind of moved back in, because it's like, Walker and Emily had, August and Stella, so like the house hasn't really been quiet for like 20 years. But then, you can tell there's also a little sadness, because it's like, yeah, we're enjoying it, but it's also like, that's going to be an adjustment period, getting used to the quiet again, potentially, for a while. I mean, because the last one's still going to be sticking around. I mean, Stella and Liam would be, just because of like the horse ranch and everything, the horse rescue. August has still got high school, but also once again the military stuff is potentially coming up too, so him trying to get recruited, so we'll see how that plays out. But them kind of being able to enjoy themselves. I even love like, oh yeah, go get the blindfold, and Bonham was like, it took him a second to be like, oh, I was like, hey, yo, Abby. And they did their thing, and they kind of talked a little bit about their honeymoon, and obviously them kind of having to put that on pause just because of like stuff around the ranch. Like they needed to take the money they were going to use to take their trip to Italy. It's like, rather like we had to fix like the motor on farm equipment or something, so that had to be put on pause. And they're like, right, let's live vicariously through Larry and Kelly. But for Bonham, it's like, no, like, I wish them the best of luck, obviously, but our honeymoon is long overdue, because they've had to kind of put that on pause, and especially after everything that they've been through since, as they put it, forever, not just what we know over the course of the show, but everything that's kind of happened. It's like, right, especially considering like their relationship started in a complicated space, as we learned last season about the whole Marv Davison situation, so. But when it's all said and done, it's kind of this cute moment of like, right, run away to Tuscany with me. And it's like, she says yes. So it's like, yeah, it'll be a perfect time after, the wedding and everything. It's like, well, everything's going to be fine, which you're immediately like, that's kind of a red flag. There's some other red flags, which I'll get to in a second. But the moment that popped up, I was like, oh, that's probably not going to be... Yeah, it's just like things aren't going to go the way you think. Because they're like, we'll leave the farm. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And then that kind of leads into what I was just bringing up, our stinger at the end. That forest ranger, I was like, I knew something was up with her. I was like, it's so weird that you would rent, especially because they dedicated, like, it's not like a lot, but it's still like an entire scene dedicated to her. I was like, that seemed too on purpose. Like, she just happens to be out here when you guys are. I felt like that was too on purpose. Didn't even click in my head that the lady that's, the dude that Sadie met at the party apparently is someone she knows. I wonder, did they know, like, was that just happenstance, or did they kind of push Sadie? Because I don't think Sadie's a part of that, but we know she's kind of, probably run with some pretty bad circles. She's kind of, taken after her dad, regardless of it, and, complicated life in its own right. But I wonder, was that even the truth when she said her mom was a librarian? Maybe? I don't know. But that guy, along with the ranger, I don't know if they're like partners in all of this. He did seem like he was taking an interest in Stella, but I was like, oh, whoa, you're barking up the wrong tree, my guy. I thought that's why I thought like the Sadie thing might have been because it felt like it might have been a him and Sadie thing, but maybe they're just good friends. But he seemed like he was taking such an interest in Stella. Now we know why. And it's like, oh, I'm going to use this as an advantage. Like maybe he doesn't know about her having a boyfriend, so it's going to be a little, I mean, obviously, I'd hope that Colton's able to show up for the wedding. We'll see. But it's like they're both trying to find an end. They're like, this crew's the perfect crew, but we found an end, an opportunity, and it's, Larry's wedding. It's like, oh, perfect time for a Ranger's wedding. So that's why I'm like, is this... Because once again, I've kept stressing, like, post everything with Kevin at a pause, because I was like, Kyle? I couldn't remember his name. It's Kevin. Everything post him, I kept being like, there's no way this gray flag thing is done. So are they remnants of this, or is this a whole other beast in itself? Because I'm like, that's why I was like, what are they going to potentially set up for the future? I'm like, there's no way we're just going to have all this like closure at the end of this season. It's like you have to be setting something else up. So at the very least, this seems to be a setup. Like I said, whether this is like the remnants of some Gray Flag stuff, or whether, like I said, it feels like this could be a whole other beast in itself, but we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, which is the season finale. So to ultimately see how the season wraps up is going to be fascinating to see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.